Hello again, pilots. This is Commander Mr. Everything from the 1st Naval Aerospace Squadron, and we're going to continue on with your flight school training. In this episode, we're talking about in atmosphere around a planet flying and how it differs and how it's similar to flying in space or on a moon. Inside atmosphere, you are going to have an atmospheric interference or resistance against your aircraft. It's also going to allow ships with aerodynamics to be able to utilize their flight surfaces to better maneuver inside an atmosphere. So, okay, let's go ahead and jump into the ship, and there's a few pointers and a few things I want you to be aware of. All right, so we're in our Sabre, and we are in a dead cockpit, and what we're going to do is we're going to press P. Okay, some of the key bindings for the 1st Naval Aerospace Squadron might be different than what you're familiar with. There is a key binding to go immediately to flight ready. In the 1st Naval Aerospace Squadron, we call that powering on, and that is P. Okay, now as you can remember, you can see, okay, you're going to be able to see my hands, the keys that I'm pressing, and what's going on my keyboard while this tutorial is going on. That way you'll be able to follow along, and I will try to vocally announce which keys I'm pressing so that you'll also be able to see that. On your heads-up display right here, you have a ladder. Notice this ladder, it's very hard to kind of see right now because of the way the atmosphere is. But this is 0. That would be your horizon. This is -5 degrees, and this is +5 degrees. And then you go -10 degrees, +10 degrees. It should stay parallel to the curvature of the world that you're near. So when you're in the air, that is one way for you to be able to orient your ship. You'll know that you're either banking to the right or banking to the left based on your ladder. This little wing section right here is the orientation of your ship, and it also lets you know the orientation or the bank of your wings or your airfoil. Now you'll notice over here you do have a terminal velocity. This terminal velocity is based on the altitude that you're at and your ship's capability. So as you gain altitude, that terminal velocity will actually increase. Now what that's indicating is your maximum velocity that your ship will automatically go to when you change your limiter, right? Your limiter is this little line right there, and you can use your mouse wheel to grow that line up or down. Okay, now before we take off, there's a point that I wanted to make. The limiter also limits your strafing and your climbing and diving speed just based on your thruster. If I raise that when I climb, my thrusters will be potentially able to go faster. Now I can lower my limiter so that when I'm taking off, my thrusters will have a limited amount of thrust and I won't go skyrocketing to space. Also, when you're coming into landing, it's better to keep your limiter low. That way you can make precision maneuvering easier. Like the old precision maneuvering, you actually have to adjust how precise you want your thrusters to be. Okay, so let's go ahead and lower it down, not all the way to 0, but just a little bit above 0. And then what I'll do is I'll take off. By pressing the space bar, I'm going to jump into the air. Okay, and that was with a low limiter. Okay, So now let me raise my limiter. You can see how I've raised it. Let me orient to the ground by pressing Q and E. E and Q will let me orient. Now you notice we're in the atmosphere, we're near a planet. I'm not like descending, I'm hovering. Okay, so now if I press the spacebar, I'll jump again, but because my limiter is much higher, I will jump much faster. Let go, slow down to 0. Same thing when you're going down. If I have my limiter way up, I could slam into the ground really hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce my limiter quite a bit. And see, now I'm holding it down and I'm only going 11. Okay, let's see how fast I jump. 11. I can change my limiter. Now I'm jumping like way over 60, 70, right? And you don't want to slam into the dirt. That's what I'm using now as is the crouch button, control. So I lower my limiter down to 11 is good. Anything under 20 is pretty good for your landing gear on the Saber. And this way, I don't have to worry about like tapping my control. I can just come down. Boom. And we are down. Barely missed that rock. Wasn't really paying attention. All right. So let's jump using space. It's only going to go 11. Now, if I want to go more, I can raise my limiter, and now I can jump and dive more. Okay, now this also applies to slipping left. I'm using my A and D keys to go left. Notice it's at 44, and I let go, and it slows down, and then I go D, and it goes to the right. Guess how much it's going to go? 44. Now, if I lower my limiter, maybe I'm trying to dock into a space station, I can bring that limiter down. I'm at 17, 14, 11, 9, 7. See, I'm just barely rolling my wheel like one click at a time. Now I'm strafing 5. And if I go the other way, strafing 5. Okay, let's strafe and go down. See, I'm going super slow. F4 will get you an external view. And this is a very slow, but if I roll my wheel, it would speed that process up. Roll my wheel back. If I roll it all the way to 0, no matter how much I press on the descend, it won't move. If you feel like you're about to hit a rock or something like that, stop, strafe, down, forward, left, down, there you go, and you're on the ground. All right, so let's bring our limiter up just a little bit. Let's jump in the air. Okay, if we let go, it will settle to 0. I'm still on free look here. Press Z, that's what we use to get rid of free look. Now I'm in control of the ship. Now there's a couple of ways you can control the point of your ship. Right now I have it set on gimbal. Even though none of my weapons are gimbaled, it will still let me check and select gimbal as an option by pressing R. Fixed, gimbal. fixed, gimbal. Now what gimbal does is, and I'm pointing down deliberately so you can see my circular crosshair, it allows me to point in the direction that I want to fly in, and the saber, smart enough, will try to attain that heading. Now if I hit R and go to fixed, that won't be there. I've just got to kind of know what's up. And it's a little harder for me to fly. It might be better for you to fly that way, or if you're using a joystick or a keypad or a control pad. But because I'm using a mouse, I like it to be set like this where I can actually see where I'm pointing my mouse. All right, so now we're stationary. We're hovering, we're stationary, we're just sitting there. If I roll the mouse wheel up or down, it doesn't matter. We're not traveling anywhere because I'm not pressing any of my maneuver buttons. So I'm not pressing W to go forward. I'm not pressing S to do any kind of backwards movement, because that's what we're doing. We're flying backwards with an S. I'm not pressing A to go left. I'm not pressing D to go right. I'm just letting it go to hover. And as you know from our previous video, if I press C or Charlie, it will cruise to whatever my limiting throttle is set at. And it will automatically try to get there. Now, we have a terminal velocity of 480 right here. So let's crank my throttle up and let's watch the ship's velocity try to get to 480. It's at 450. It's struggling. It's struggling to get to that 480 point, right? Actually, I went low enough. Now it's back to like 470. Okay. If I was to climb, you can see the terminal velocity is increasing, and the ship velocity is also increasing to try to meet this number. So the higher you go, the faster you can fly. We're passing through clouds. I'm blacking out. Whew, that was a rough one. Okay. And that's what happens when you fight gravity with full thrust like that. So I'm going to bring my limiter down. We're going back down. I'm using the Q and the E to rotate. And we're going to talk about maneuvering in the atmosphere here in a minute. But I'm going to do it closer to the ground so you can actually visually have some reference points to see the effect of the maneuvers I'm about to make. Let's raise our landing gear. Deploying our wing surfaces. One reason why the 1st Naval Aerospace Squadron uses the Sabre is due to its high maneuverability inside of an atmosphere. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit Charlie to stop. Right, it gets rid of any limiter that we have set. Right. Now I'm not going to accidentally just crash into the ground or anything. Also, there's a new number on our HUD, which is altitude. It tells you how many meters you are up from sea level. So if you're over a mountain or a hill and it says you're at 100 meters, you still might hit the ground because that hill might be more than 100 meters tall. This altitude is sea level, so be careful about that. Okay, so you have your limiter set, and when you're flying by holding W, it will only go up to your limiter. When you let go of W, it'll drop. When you hold W, it'll go. But instead of having to hold W, you can always just press C, and it's like a toggle. If you want to go temporarily faster than the terminal velocity, okay, so we're going to we're going to get low. So to reduce the terminal velocity allowed. Okay, so we're going to get kind of low to limit how fast the terminal velocity can be. Okay, so you can see that the ship is already at terminal velocity, so it can't go any faster. Well, that's not true. You have afterburners, and by holding shift, you can exceed the terminal velocity when you press afterburners. Here we go, pressing shift. And we will let off on the afterburners. And we'll bring our engines back down to nominal. I can actually hit C and we'll just completely stop. So that's one way you can push your Saber to the limit in case you need to get out of there or if you're chasing somebody. That looks really good. And then I'm going to go third person so that you can see the drift of the Saber. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to turn and you're going to see the drift. All right. All right, we're going to turn the other way. And you can see we're not going directly the direction we are aiming. We're going more to the left, right? We're slipping. All right, perfect. And now we're going the way we're pointing. All right, so let's go towards the inland again. But now this time, I'm going to bank the wings, and I'm going to show you something. Here we go. And we're only going at about 200. We're not going crazy fast. And we're looking for that slippage. You don't really see any slippage. And look how fast we were able to turn around. There's still some slippage, but not as much as there was when we were just doing a flat spin. All right. So let's let the... We're at 200, and let's do it the other way. All right. We're just going to turn a little bit. Start heading, and you can hear the engines are they're overworking to get us to go the direction we're trying to go. We're going to go a little bit faster because then you'll see it'll be way more pronounced. Okay, now without any banking, watch the angling. The slipping. Look at that. Look at that slip. I'm having a hard time keeping control of the ship. You can see how many times I'm stroking this mouse over. I'm going to increase my sensitivity. And now I still might hit that hill because I'm drifting to the right or left. Okay. I'm going to turn the other way. See, it doesn't want to turn. Okay. Maybe that's because I'm blacking out. Okay, in third person, you don't see yourself blacking out. Alright, now we are at the TSIS spaceport. We're going to drop our Charlie, so we'll throttle down to 0. So we're not going to hit anything. Let's go ahead and stop the spin. Let's bring up our communications. Request for landing. Permission.
Please proceed to assigned landing bay.
So now we look for the wrench, which is right there. Now I can slowly up my limiter, but what I want to do is go to Charlie and then use my limiter to keep me going down slow. I've always said go at about 50 when approaching a hangar and drop it down even lower, like 10 when entering the hangar. Now, if it's just a landing pad, 10 to 20 is fine. But you remember, you don't want to slam into the ground, which has happened to my hangar. That was the spot, wasn't it? They closed the door on us.
Please proceed to landing assignment.
Okay. Where is it? Is that it right there? There you go. They changed it on us. Okay. You can actually slip. Okay. And then from here, I'll probably take a C and slow it down. So now I don't move at all. I'm going to lower my gear. That actually is going to retract my wings, so I won't clip the edge. Won't clip the edge. Now I'm just tapping the W, and then now we hold the control down, and then I can control the speed of my descent using the wheel. I think that's good right there. And like let's go down. We're done.
Landing complete.
Power off. And you have successfully negotiated the atmosphere. All right, guys, and that was the end of your flight school in atmosphere. We're going to progress on into selecting and changing weapons and basic combat tactics in future videos. I'll see you in the hangar.